Welcome to AlexGs Aquarium, everybody. Today I want to give a general update on the 1,600 gallon system, let you know how all the tanks are doing and what their status is. Let's start off by talking about the 480 gallon reef tank. If you haven't noticed already, there's a lot of algae in this tank. And since I've added the radion lighting to this tank, it is just kind of taken off and kind of covered up quite a bit of stuff. There's some cyano, some hair, maybe even some bryopsis. Even some macroalgae species that are growing in the refuge tank have kind of taken in a little bit of a hold in here. I'm not concerned about it at the moment. I've done water quality testing. My phosphates are at 0 and my nitrates are at 10, which really isn't bad. And I think that this is in part just a reaction to the new lighting coming into this system. There were nutrients available in this tank. The algae really hasn't taken off in the other tanks. I think that's a big part of this. I've added a couple of sea urchins and a couple more turbo snails. I really don't have a huge cleanup crew in this tank, and I might add some to it here shortly, but I'm gonna kind of let this play out a little bit. I really want to give the urchins and the snails a little bit more time to kind of chow down on all the algae that's here, because there is quite a bit of it and it will take them a little bit of time to get rid of it all. Then if that's not doing it, we'll start looking at some other things. I've looked at my RODI unit and I'm still producing water with a TDS of 1 to 2, and then check the barrels and they're still low TDS as well, which has the potential to feed this. I think since the other tanks really aren't experiencing anything in the form of algae problems though, it's just the fact that it's a new system and there's new high-powered lighting that's been added. Before the algae really kind of took off though, I did add a few corals to this tank, and I want to talk about those really quick. Let's start off by looking at the bubble corals. Now, the bubble corals are both doing great. This is the original coral put into the 480 gallon reef. I also have this coral that I picked up during the Chicago Aquatic Experience. It's also been doing really good and actually showing some signs of growth. As far as new corals to the tank, I added this green and blue Weslophilia. These are one of my favorite corals. I just had to get it. And I also picked up some frog spawn. And these are just kind of some bread and butter corals. These are actually the first 3 corals I ever purchased in my very first reef tank. Was a bubble coral, a Weslophilia, and a frog spawn. Some other corals that I also went and purchased, which you can see are surrounded by algae. I got this little chalice here from my local fish store, Reef Plus. He's got a huge colony he's had growing for a long time. He recently had to chop it up a bit and had a little die off, but it's a cool looking piece and it's been doing well. Also got a couple of Monty frags here. Some plating ones. There's a little piece you can't really see, and then I got this one here. Got kind of a blue tinge to it on the skeleton and kind of a brownish red on the polyps, so we'll see how that one colors up. So far these have been in for a couple of weeks now at least, and they've all been doing okay. Moving on, you can see that the sea urchins are in the branching rock and they are starting to make a dent on this algae, so they're gonna I'm just gonna let them go and do their thing. I have also picked up some acrofrags. Not anything special, nothing really expensive. I've had this one here going on about 3 weeks now. It's been doing good. It's actually looking like it's colored up just a little bit. I also got this little blue one, an aqua colored one. This one up here, which isn't really colored up, but I was told I believe it's an Oregon tort. Don't quote me on that though, because I could be completely wrong. Also got this little acrofrag right here. It's kind of an update on the corals. You can see there is a ton of algae in the 480 gallon tank. As I said, it's actually looking slightly better than it was. I'm just gonna let this kind of play out, see where it goes. Probably gonna get a little bit more in the way of cleanup crew members here soon, just to help deal with some of this algae. But eventually it'll get taken care of. I can already see that the sea urchins are starting to make a little dent here in the middle, and it's only a matter of time before these sea urchins start to really take a little bit bigger bite out of this algae. So 720 gallon tank has been doing good. Haven't been any other issues in here. The fish have all been doing good. The raw small pumps have been doing good. I kind of change the programming up, and about once every couple of weeks I just reorient the power heads and kind of stir up a little detritus. I think in the next couple of weeks though, I'll probably take up one of these pumps off, or just put another power head or pump in here and just blow the rocks off a bit, see what other kind of detritus I can get off. You might not be able to see it real well, but there is coralline algae just starting to sprout up all over the place on the bottom here. It's showing up more and more on the rocks every week too. I'm happy to see some coralline growing in here. It kind of gives a little bit of texture to this bottom. I don't care if it all turns purple eventually. I'm just fine with that. I just want to make sure that I'm getting good growth in here. I do have one coral that I put into the 720 gallon tank, and I want to show you guys that right now. There's the one piece of coral that's in the 720 gallon tank right now. It's a little piece of Blue Ridge coral. It's been in there for a few weeks now, and it's been doing okay. It's no real signs of growth yet. Looks like it's about to shed soon. We'll see what happens after it sheds. Overall though, the 720 gallon tank's not looking bad. There's still some algae on the rocks here, and the snails have been slowly kind of taking it away. But it hasn't gone out of control like it is in the 480 gallon tank, which is why I'm not too concerned that I have a larger water quality issue. As I also said, I did testing and phosphates are 0 and nitrates are only 10. Back in the fish room, I want to talk a little bit about equipment, specifically the UV sterilizer and the protein skimmer. The next big thing I have to do in this system is get this UV sterilizer up and working. There's a small wooden shelf that I've constructed back here that's going to hold the UV sterilizer in kind of a horizontal position. It won't be completely level though. It's going to be slightly tilted on purpose just to make sure that the electrical connections for the bulb are just stationed up just a little higher. Make it a little easier to do some access as well for maintenance. Unfortunately, it's too cold to do painting, and the wooden bracket that I've made for it is just going to sit with bare wood for now. I'm not very concerned. When it warms up in the spring, I'll go ahead and paint it. I'm not going to do any painting down in my basement anymore with the system up and running. I don't want to get paint fumes into the water and potentially cause a problem with any of the animals in the tank. Talking about the protein skimmer, I have seen a huge jump in performance. A few weeks ago, I did a modification to the protein skimmer, and I wanted to share it with everybody. And I'm now getting skimming into the cup itself. It was a simple modification because ultimately what happened is the protein skimmer before, it was making a lot of waste, but the foam would not be able to get all the way up the neck of the skimmer and into the waste collection cup. And because of that, I was looking at it saying, well, I really don't have a big enough bioload to kind of push this skimmer to make foam right now. But as I was thinking about it more and more, I was going, well, while waste is collecting in the neck of the skimmer, it's not getting into the cup, and therefore there's some of it that might be falling back into the tank or just not getting pulled out. I thought about different reasons why this could happen, which if you design a DIY skimmer, you're bound to come into a few little impasses on design choice and how things are going to work, or you think they're going to work. When I built this skimmer, I put an 8-inch neck on it, which I think was probably a little too ambitious. And because it's such a large diameter, it takes some very strong waste foam for skimming to climb that whole 8-inch neck. And there really was not enough airflow to kind of give it that extra boost. Therefore, I decided I needed to increase the airflow or the air pressure going upwards to help lift the foam out and get it into the skimming cup. I thought at first that I would get a large air pump and retro it in here and add even more air injection into this so that it would increase that air pressure. But that was going to take a lot of modification. Now I got to buy another piece of equipment. I'm going to have to modify the skimmer. And I started thinking about other things I could do, and I came up with what I think is a great solution, And I really believe this could work for anybody's skimmer if you think it's underperforming and they're having a hard time getting skimming to get produced, either on a DIY or a commercial skimmer. I don't see why you couldn't do this if you want to try and help it out. Let me show you what I did. You can see there's just an absolute ton of skimming coming out of this thing. And all I did for a modification, which you could probably start to see here, is I added a 3-inch cylinder of PVC with a cap on the top and the bottom and a little spanner here to just hold it in place. So what this modification did was it allowed the protein skimmer neck to have a lot smaller opening. I took away a 3-inch cylinder worth of it, which caused two things to happen. The air pressure coming in had less space to escape, so its air pressure pushing up became greater. It also narrowed how big of a distance the skimming foam had to span here. And I think that really helped out. You could see just how loaded up it is. Overall, I'm really happy with the performance of the skimmer now with this new modification. I'll probably show it again in another video. I'll do something specialized on the protein skimmer just to show everything I've done and how it's working. I'm going to have more modifications. I'm going to have to do the tops of the 265-gallon sump. As this UV is going to get installed here, I'm going to have to cut a couple more holes for plumbing, and also I'm going to have to kind of break up the tops a little bit more so I can actually take them off once this UV sterilizer is fully installed. I'm really interested to see too how this UV affects the tank, and technically it is undersized for this size tank. However, this UV sterilizer is big enough and it is rated to not just kill algae in the water but also pathogens. So that's how it's going to get set up, with a lower water flow rate. There'll be another video on it to show its install and just talk a little bit in general about getting used equipment. Also, coming up sometime in the future, I want to do a versus video. I want to see the single plate needle wheel impeller versus a double one that I made DIY. I want to do a head-to-head test with these two needle wheel impellers, and I want to see if there's really a difference between them. I also have a couple of DIY Venturis that I've made and tried out. I want to try those against each other as well to really see which one performs better or they perform the same. So stay tuned, that video will be inbound soon. The final thing I want to talk about today is humidity control. Now, I've had this system running now for a few months. We've gone through some really cold times in the Chicagoland area now. It's gotten well below 0 degrees Fahrenheit out here. And I want to just talk about how the humidity control has been doing. Also, I've added all these extra water movement pumps. There's a lot more surface agitation now in these tanks. I just wanted to do a little in general talk on humidity control. And the humidity control system I have in place with the ventilation and the dehumidifier is still working great. The only small issue that I've come across is that where the cold air hits the plastic, in some cases where there is a really big departure in temperature between the cement and on the outside and inside, I'll get a little bit of condensation forming on the inside of the plastic. And I really want to emphasize it's on the inside of the plastic and not the outside, because if it was on the outside of the plastic, that would be a really big problem for me. If it's in this fish room and it's contained though, I have been finding that using something like a fan just to blow over it will help to evaporate that really quickly and won't allow anything to kind of start growing there. That's something to keep in mind with humidity control as well. Overall though, the rest of my basement, the rest of my house are still in a very acceptable range in like the 30 to 40% humidity. I actually have been keeping the humidifier on my furnace for the rest of the house because the basement I've been keeping in the 30% range with the dehumidifier. If anyone has any comments, questions on today's video, please go ahead, leave them down below. If you like today's video, go ahead, give me that thumbs up. If you want to see more on the 1600-gallon system, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I will see you on the next video.